You have the right to remain silent. You know the line from every cop show or movie you've seen created after the mid-'60s.
Yeah, it's the first in a list of rights known as the Miranda Warning, and it became part of police practice following a Supreme Court ruling back in 1966. But the case at the center of that landmark decision traces back to Phoenix and a man from Mesa who confessed to a heinous crime. March 3rd, 1963. A young woman left work in downtown Phoenix, got on the bus to go home. But as she was walking from the bus stop to her house, she was stopped by a man who pulled her by the arm into his older model Packard car. He tied her up, he raped her, and he got away. A tip led then Phoenix Police Detective Captain Carol Cooley to a home on West Mariposa Street in Phoenix, the home of a young Hispanic man in his 20s. Ernie Miranda, his Packard in the driveway.
So he come to the door and he said, "What's this about?" And we told him that we were investigating a police incident and we would like to talk to him.
He went willingly with Cooley in an unmarked vehicle.
On the way, he asked what this is about, and I said, let's just wait till we get to the department and we'll tell you all about it.
They took him down to what was then the Phoenix Police Station, 2nd Avenue between Jefferson and Washington, where Ernie agreed to stand in a lineup.
So then he asked me, how did I do? And I said, well, you didn't do so good, Ernie, kind of sympathetically. And he said, well, I guess I better tell you about it then. I said, yes, I think you should.
During interrogation, Miranda confessed to the crime. He wrote in great detail how he grabbed her by the arm, tied her hands and ankles. It was enough to send him up to the top floor of the building to jail. March of 1963, Ernesto Miranda walked through these hallways to be processed as a prisoner. He was searched right here along these two poles. Then he was sent to the nurse to be checked out before being sent to his cell right down the hallway. Miranda was convicted in the rape case. The Arizona Supreme Court affirmed that conviction. But in November of 1965, the case went to the nation's highest court. ASU law professor Gary Stewart was a law student at the time.
Well, the Supreme Court at that time, in the mid-'60s, had been actively looking for a case, or more than one case, to resolve an enormous conflict in American law.
The conflict centered around confessions. Can you use them in court based on the assumption they're given voluntarily? Does someone have to remind the defendant that they can be silent? And if so, who?
Because we know in thousands of cases that in many cases, and in most cases, in the great majority of the cases, the defendant has no idea what his rights are.
In 1966, the Supreme Court decided police officers would be the ones required to remind suspected criminals of their rights before questioning with the Miranda Warning. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. The right to an attorney, and to have one provided for you if you can't afford one, and the right to exercise these rights at any time.
Once Miranda came down, it was an easy deal for the cop. All they had to do was read him his rights. If he confesses, he confesses.
The new law changed police practice in America. It was also life-changing for Cooley. His work as a new detective was thrust into the spotlight and criticized.
They decided that the police officers should tell him that. Well, we weren't trained to tell him that. That was not something we did. I didn't like it. I didn't like it as it affected me, but it was probably good for police work and the country.
I asked Cooley if he thought Miranda still would have confessed had he been told he could remain silent under today's law.
Yes. I tell you why. Maybe I wasn't the smoothest guy, but I was friendly, and I treated people, I don't care who they were, I treated them nice. So you give people respect, you get respect back. I just knew that. Nobody taught that. Yeah. And so, yes, I think Miranda, under the circumstances, would have been willing to tell me anyway.
Miranda was retried in Arizona, and this time the confession was excluded from evidence. Still, he was convicted again. In 1972, while on parole, Miranda started making money on the street. autographing Miranda Warning cards and selling them for a fee. But ultimately, in 1976, he was murdered in a downtown Phoenix bar. And ironically, police read the suspect his Miranda rights before questioning.
I call it a 30-second tutorial on the Constitution. It's given thousands and thousands of times in every little hamlet and city and town and state in this country.
The story behind the warning, forever a part of American history, Arizona's history, and Cooley's life, which he dedicated to public service.
I'm no legend. Never was, never will be. I'm just a simple person who's done the best he could under the circumstances in life itself.
Now, the Miranda doctrine has been debated over and over again since the 60s. Some have argued the Miranda warning is prophylactic. It's unnecessary. And just this year, a case known as Vega versus Teco went to the Supreme Court. In June, the court decided of this year, if a confession is used against a defendant in a criminal case, the defendant can't come back and sue police in civil court. So, what does this mean for Miranda? Well, that remains to be seen, and only time will tell.